This is Adam Dorito, host of the Tuxes and Tomahawks podcast. I'm a paratrooper, I'm a farmer, and an oil and gas worker here in the United States. And here we want to talk about the constitutional divide in our country, really enhancing what these political candidates are running for in the state of Colorado this year. And I'm really excited to bring on Trent Leisy, who's running for District 65 here in Colorado. Trent, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, thank you, Adam, for having me on.
And you reached out to me beforehand when I sent you, a message on Facebook because I'm interested in talking to all these candidates that are so important in this critical election. And thank you for being the first person to take me up on this before the primary. I'm surprised because I don't think people understand podcasting is really a way to reach all the voters in the silent majority that just don't understand what's going on in all these Facebook groups, the Instagram feeds, and they don't even take the time to get to know the candidates. And that's what I'm trying to do is get to know the candidates here that are running in Colorado in 2024.
Yeah, I think what candidates, they underestimate the ability of social media, of Twitter Spaces, podcasting. They don't understand it. And if you look at a lot of their posts on social media, they're not getting any engagement. And so, really, I've done a lot of advertising on social media, and I'm blown away on how much response that I'm getting on social media. I didn't think my ads would really take off like they have, but really what it shows is that people are very engaged in what goes on social media.
No, I completely agree. So, Trent, tell me more about you. Where did you come from, and how did you get to where you are today running in Colorado District 65? Tell me about your background and your
Yeah, so
history.
my background, born and raised in Will County here in Windsor, grew up here, graduated from Windsor. I've served on the school board here in Windsor. I spent 4 years in the Navy. I went in right before September 11th, got out in '05, came back, got 2 degrees at CSU, and I've just been in agriculture ever since. I've always dabbled in politics, always loved politics. And so, currently I'm a small business owner in agriculture. And so I've always loved politics, always been involved in politics since I was a young kid. Really got into it during the Ross Perot and Bush and Gore debates, or Clinton debates. Sorry about that. And so, that's what really got me into politics. And I've always just loved and followed it. I was involved in Weld County politics in high school, interned for Senator Allard in his Greeley office. I've spent time back in Washington when I was, in high school, and I just love it. And I took a break from it for a while, and really got back into it heavy during the COVID debacle and what was going on. Obviously, I've been a huge Trump supporter, Trump fan, and but really in 2021 is when I started to really get back involved in politics. And so I'm definitely love Trump and the America First agenda. And what I love about Trump is he's destroyed the Republican Party, and I love that. I love that, and we've needed that for a very, very long time. And so I in September of last year, I threw my name in the hat for CD4. I was the first candidate to enter the Congressional District 4 race because I got sick and tired of seeing what Ken Buck was doing to our district and our country. And he was so anti-Trump and loved Liz Cheney and stood against everything that America First stands for. And so, I was happy. We put a lot of pressure on him in social media, and I was ready to go toe to toe with him during the primary. And then, he cowardly decided that he wasn't going to run again, and then ultimately chickened out and was a coward and resigned from Congress, only to throw the Republican majority in Congress into chaos and turmoil. And this is all done intentionally because he doesn't love our country. If he did, he would have done what his constituents wanted him to do. And so, obviously the field got crowded after he jumped out of the race. And, once Lauren Boebert jumped in and Trump endorsed her. I love Lauren. She's a great person. She's going to be a phenomenal representative for the fourth congressional district. She's done a lot of great work, and to me, my loyalty is to Trump, and so I wasn't going to run against a Trump endorsed candidate. Lauren and I stand for the exact same things. She has the record in Congress, and so with communicating with her and talking with her about it, just felt like it was the right thing to step aside. And I saw what was going on the state level, and I saw who was running in this seat, and it's a rhino, handpicked by Mike Lynch and the establishment. And I just felt like that this district deserves better than another establishment rhino going down there and negotiating people's constitutional rights and conservative principles down the drain just to make a bad deal, I guess, less bad in their eyes. So, instead of giving the Democrats a 50 cal to shoot them at, they now give them a shotgun. I guess that's what making a bad deal less bad means, I guess. But and I've enjoyed this race, and I've kept it above bar until just recently when they decided to come at me personally. So I'm ready. I'm an America First conservative fighter, and I cannot be bought and paid for, and that scares them.
I completely agree with you, and I want to go back and talk about your previous history a little bit. But I want to mention something that I really admire about what you said is the fact that you are willing to put yourself below the needs of the new Republican Party, and I call it the America First conservative. There is a big difference between an America First conservative and the traditional Republican Party. And to be fair, my background is I've worked in federal politics for about 14 years, mostly doing military legislation and reform. This is my first year getting involved in local politics. I was asked to start getting involved because of my notoriety on the federal stage and in DC and stuff. And man, once I started getting involved in local politics, I didn't realize how much of an absolute disaster and how divided Colorado is and how they just constantly keep shooting themselves in the foot. And I know Lauren personally. I've worked with her on federal legislation. I'm still working with her office on things right now. And this is before she was even running for CD4. And ironically, before I was deployed to CENTCOM, I was in District 4 with Ken Buck. And I had tried to work with Ken Buck and the previous guy down in CD5. And they were absolute disasters in trying to work with actual reform in our country. They were all about themselves. They didn't work for their constituents. And then I come back from deployment and magically I get gerrymandered into District 8. And somehow, as a farmer and an oil and gas worker in CD8, I am now represented by a Democrat. I don't know how that happened, but it just shows you how divided the state of Colorado is and how they can't get their shit together when it comes to representing real conservative, rural values. And I get asked this question all the time, like, how could you support such a country hussy like Lauren Boebert? And I'm like, look, when it comes down to it, I do not care what you do in your personal time. That is what being a free American is all about, And people are like, do you know what she did in the back of that, play or whatever? I go, ma'am, how many kids do you have? It's like some sweet old lady up in Greeley. She's like, I got 4 wonderful kids. And I'm like, how many grandkids do you have? And she's like, I got 6 grandkids. And I'm like, and how many hand jobs did you have to give to get that family? Shut up. Stop talking. I don't care. You know what I mean? It's like all the kids fucking in F-150s in the back of the Greeley parking lot at the Greeley High School. I don't care what you do in your personal time, but her voting record is rock solid for the conservative America First values in the Freedom Caucus with Matt Gaetz. I love what Matt Gaetz is doing down in Florida as well. And these are the people that I want. I want the outlandish, robust American gun-toting, cowboy boot-wearing, cowboy hat, horse-riding people. That's who we need to run America. I want the tombstone, type of cowboys running this country. I don't need any more politicians that say what they want to say because that's what they're being told to say by their constituent parties just to gain money. I want people that want to be civil servants. I don't want people that want to be elected. I want people that want to be hired because they know it's the right thing to do. And you brought up something in your history that I want to talk about. So you were joining the military when 9/11 happened. And I think we're losing that generation. So I was in the same generation as well, right? Like I'm originally from New Jersey. I saw the towers get hit. I lost family in the towers. So I graduated high school in 2006, and then I immediately joined the military 1 year after you got out. What was it like, and what inspired you to join the military, and what was that like during the 9/11 years, like right in the initial parts of the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq? Because I think that's a lost history of a generation of Americans that were that we'll probably never see again in our lifetime until we're old and dead, right? Where
Mhm.
like you have the Pearl Harbor attack, generation as well, where they joined for a reason that was bigger than themselves. So tell me about your experience during that time on 9/11, and what inspired you to join the Navy.
Yeah, I mean, so I went in May of '01, and I graduated high school in '99. I went to CSU for a year and a half. I really didn't know what I wanted. I didn't really know where I wanted to go. And at that time, college was shoved down everybody's throat. Like, you have to go to college or you're a loser. And, you're not going anywhere in your life if you don't go to college. And so I wasn't enjoying CSU. I wasn't enjoying college. And so I quit. I unfortunately followed my ex-wife down to Georgia and did odd jobs for 5 months, and finally I was like, I'm not going anywhere in my life. And I I woke up one day and I said, I guess I'm meant to go in the military. And by the end of the day, I was signed up in the Navy and filling out the paperwork. And 3 weeks later, I was in boot camp in Great Lakes, Illinois. And honestly, it was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. And it really turned my life around. And I loved being in there. I loved boot camp. I was with some amazing, great people are like, you love boot camp? Yeah, I enjoyed boot camp. We had a lot of fun. It was structure. It's what I needed. It's what a lot of people need. And so then I, got deployed after, or I got stationed on an aircraft carrier in Seattle, Washington. And, you know, uh,
What
I
carrier
mean,
were you on?
what's that?
What carrier group were you with?
The USS Abraham Lincoln
Very
was
cool.
the carrier that I was, CVN 72. And, it's like I really felt like God was really directing my career. I mean, I ended up in a very small division, working in hazmat and supply. I turned that division around. And, I've worked with some incredible, amazing people in the military. And then 9/11 hits. And I wasn't quite to the ship yet. I was in Meridian, Mississippi, finishing up my schooling.
Like, what was that like though, Trent? Like, you're in the Navy pre 9/11. All of a sudden, towers go down. It's real. Like, it's like, oh shit! Like, this is going to
Yeah,
get serious. Real.
I
Like, what was
mean,
that like, Trent?
well, everybody says that anybody who remembers that very vividly can know exactly what was going on the minute it happened. And I remember I was getting blood drawn at medical because in order for my wife and I to get married, we had to have a blood test done to make sure we weren't relatives. And I remember the lady getting ready to poke me as we're staring at the TV and watching the plane, hit the tower. And at that moment, I mean, it was like we're in a different state now. And our country is completely different now. That moment, I mean, I remember waking up that morning and, it was just like, it was a great morning. We did PT, we went to lunch or breakfast. And I mean, none of us thought I never thought when I joined that I would be, thrown into a war. And, but I knew that was part of the job if that happened. And I tell you, it was like within seconds later, I mean, it was a completely different world we were living in. And we were on lockdown for 2 weeks. We were in our barracks. They had to come get, and we're in Meridian, Mississippi. Like, like what the heck is going on here? And finally, they get things kind of simmered down on the base. They got us through schooling and shoved us into our duty stations. And I got stationed on an aircraft carrier. And they were just getting prepped to being deployed to the Middle East. And it was incredible being, we were our ship dropped a third of all ordnance dropped on Iraq came from my ship. And
You cut out there a little bit, Trent. Hey, Trent, can you hear me?
Excited, and we were going, you're like, yes, we're doing something, and we were writing messages on the bombs, and we were putting stuff on there, and
Hell
you
yeah.
know, it's the same thing as
Hell
if
yeah.
you see like in World War II movies, where they were putting stuff, the exact same thing happened. And so, we never, I never thought for a minute, if we're attacked, what's going to happen? I mean, we're very powerful. A carrier is a very powerful weapon. And,
Yeah, it's a
you
mobile city of death.
yeah. And I was ready for it. We were all ready for it. And I would do it again. I would do it again. And it was an honor to be a part of that and to, be a part of, the war, whether it was the right thing or not. Looking back, it probably wasn't. And, we
Well,
had
hindsight's 2020, right?
yeah,
And when you're
but it's
when
like,
you're
what?
that
I don't
young,
care. We
exactly.
weren't looking at it as, oh, is this the right thing? Or no, you're a soldier. You're told what to do. Or I guess a
Yep.
sailor. We're told what to do. And we did it. And I would do it again if I was told to do it again. And so, I was, it was really an honor to be a part of that. And to this day, I wished, I just remember our homecoming. I remember, even to this day, people, thanking me for my service and what we did. And, the one thing that we all as a group, when we came home, I just remember there was a lot of people, a lot of Vietnam veterans that were at the pier when we got there. I mean, it was littered with Vietnam vets who welcomed us home, and they were in tears saying, I wished we had this when we came home. And so it was a very surreal moment, to come home and to see that and be a part of that and know that, our military is a very special, unique weapon in this world. And it's a very small group of people. There's not a lot of people that are willing to sign up and put their life on the line like you and I are willing to do, because we know it's a bigger picture. We know that there's what's at what we're what we could lose if we don't have strong, good people in the military who are willing to sacrifice their life for it. And I know people who did sacrifice their life and they did die for this country. And, they didn't die in vain. And I still think of them every day and still, represent them, when I go somewhere. And, because, military I feel like it's just a special, unique brotherhood that, um, I really am honored to be a part of.
And I think this is such a critical point. And this is something I've actually talked with a lot with my military friends in the background is we have so many idiots running in government right now who
Mhm.
don't have a deep connection to this country of sacrifice and service, whether that's in the military, public service, police officers. Like, you need to see the reality of how the world works outside of this country.
Yeah.
Everything is so, relatively speaking, safe. We have food, we have electricity, we have clean water. You turn on your tap, you can use it. You go to these other countries in the Middle East or elsewhere, like I've been as well, and it's just not the case. And people
Mm.
really take their freedoms and what we have here in this country for granted. And then I see all these puppets who want to go run for Congress or they want to run for local, offices, and they have no conceptual reality of the responsibility they're trying to take on, of what it really means to be a civil servant and not just an elected official. And I just want to thank you for your service and the things that you've done because you have that perspective that I don't see with a lot of people that are running for office. They try to make it about attacking the other individual, attacking, with money and influence and disinformation campaigns. And as somebody who works in psychological operations and intelligence, I sit there and just go, well, yeah, I used to do this with militia groups in Syria, to try to get them to overthrow each other. And I see it happening here domestically. And it's so annoying to me because I want to get to know who Trent is. I don't care about what your opponent says about you or anything else. I want to know that you have the foundation that we can build upon that's going to help Coloradans in general live their lives of agriculture and energy independence and just living a free life the way that you've seen how easily freedom can get taken away from you with an F-18 and a 2,000-pound GBU.
Mhm.
It's pretty awesome, right? And it blows my mind that there aren't more good, smart people that want to run for office. There's a lot of, like, no offense to
Yeah.
these people, but there's not a lot of real smart people. Like,
No, they're dumb. Look,
they
this,
don't even know what
yeah,
the Federalist Papers are. They don't even
yeah.
know what year the Constitution was written. I'm like, this is like basic, high school history stuff. And these people are running for office, and it blows me away.
Look, you know if somebody understands the Constitution if they call us a republic or a democracy. When I hear politicians say, "Oh, our democracy," okay,
We
no,
don't live in a democracy.
we're a constitutional republic, idiot. Like, come on. Look, this is what it boils down for to me. If you are a true America First patriot, conservative in this country, then you know what's at stake, and you know that it's much bigger than you, and you're willing to be a servant to the people. If you're not an America First conservative, you have no concept of what you're walking into, because you're just there as a puppet to continue to perpetuate the same ridiculous policies that have failed this country. And you're only in it for yourself and for money and for fame. But true America First conservative patriots, they know what the hell's going on. And they know what's at stake, and they know it's bigger and better than them. And that's how I am. I mean, look, you either love this country or you don't. In my opinion, if you're not America First and you're a traditional uh traditional Republican, then you're for funding, Ukraine and garbage outside of this country that hurts this country. And so, for me, it's like there's no other way to be. You're either America First or you're not. And I know there's people on the fence who say, "Yeah, I get it." I may not, because look, people equate MAGA to America First. Sure. If that's what it is, I'll be MAGA all day long. But see, even Trump knows Trump's bigger. I mean, MAGA is bigger than Trump. He understands that, and he's been vocal about that
And
at
what's wrong
events
about making America great? That's what blows my
Yeah.
mind.
Well,
I grew up
yes.
with the guy. Like, I'm from New Jersey. I grew up with Trump my entire childhood. I mean, my
Yeah.
my realization of Trump was him in Home Alone 2, turning to Kevin McAllister and waving him down in the Plaza Hotel, right? Like,
Yeah.
of course,
I
Trump's
mean,
kind of an asshole. He's from New York. Like, so am I.
yeah.
It is what
I
it is.
mean, look, Obama went on an apology tour. Okay. He went on an apology tour across the globe, apologizing for America's greatness and our, elitist attitude, and that, we shouldn't be the number one country in the world.
Pure
No, I'm
insanity.
sorry. We
Pure
should be
insanity.
the number one country in the world. And we should be very unapologetic about that. And so, I do that. See, that's the division in the Republican Party. The division is you have your America First MAGA people, and then you have everybody else. And it's like, I'm sorry, but the the Reagan days are dead. They're over with. Okay, it's been what, 40 years. Move on. That's not who we are today. And Republicans are fed up. That's why they love Trump. That's why they're gravitating that way, is because we've given so much up outside of this country, and we forgot about the people inside of this country. And that's what Trump's about. That's what America First about. That's what MAG is about. That's not what, the traditional Republican rhinos want. They want power, they want money, they want, to continue this globalist type attitude where, we're second rate citizens. And I'm done with that. And we see it here in Colorado, where, we have Republican after Republican after Republican negotiating a bad deal that I guess is less bad, but it still hurts us. And I'm done with it, and I think people are getting to the point where they're fed up with it. But the problem with Colorado is, we don't have. I think people are just afraid to step up at the state level, to run for office because the establishment machine is still at play in Colorado, and we're seeing that with the state Republican Party. And Trump destroyed the party. I like what Dave Williams is doing to the party, because there has to be a change. Enough's enough. What we've been doing is not working. We need a new direction.
No, I completely agree with that. And I think you bring up a really good point. Either you're running for government for self-sacrifice and service to this nation, or you're running for self-indulgence. And I think you're right. That's the big divide between the traditional Republican Party and the American First Conservative movement. And one thing I respect a lot about Dave Williams is, like, I was at his last debate with Jeff Crank, and he's the only candidate I've ever seen running for office currently who said, I'm a Christian, I'm a conservative, I'm a constitutionalist, and I'm a conservationist. And I don't care if I lose this race, but I will gladly lose this race knowing that I did not acquiesce to the left and I did not acquiesce to the establishment, knowing that I can go to sleep at night knowing I always am going to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Where are these candidates? These are the people I want in office, where you're not making it about yourself, you're not making it about the money, you're not making it about the establishment and the swamp. I mean, I hate to use, like, hot button words there, but it is a swamp in DC. It's a disaster. I mean, I go
Yeah.
there quite often and I sit there and just go, man, these people just can't do any of the right things for the right reasons. It's always got to be something else at play. So tell me about your time after the Navy, and literally what brought you to you talking to me today. I mean, like, you got out, in the early 2000s, and where did your life go after that? And how did you develop into the
Yeah,
man that
I
you are
mean,
today?
so I got out in 2005. We had just gotten back from, well, I'll just say this. What was interesting about my time in the military was, I spent the first part of my 4 years in a war in Iraq, and then I spent the last, several months of my career, or the 4 years that I spent in the military, doing a humanitarian relief efforts when the tsunami hit Indonesia in 2000, January 2005. So we were the first responders on scene there. So I spent a lot of time in Indonesia helping, move water into villages, food, and, disaster cleanup and body identification. And so it was worse than the war, to be honest with you. It was a disaster. And so, so then I got out and went to CSU. Spent 4.5 years at CSU. I wanted to get by then I was like, okay, I want my degrees, so ended up double majoring in political science and history. And then I was like, I like agriculture. I grew up in agriculture. I love agriculture. I farm a little bit up in Nebraska, and, own a small business in agriculture. So I've been in agriculture ever since. And, I love it. I love being out on the farms. I love the wide open space. I love the peace and quiet that comes with being out in the farmland. And it's those, farming's the backbone of this country. And this is where we get our food from. And we wouldn't survive as a nation if we didn't have agriculture. And so, farmers are a tough breed. They work long hours, and people don't understand what goes into farming. And that's what I love about it, is there's so many integral details with it. And so, I mean, that's taken me to this point. And then obviously, getting into politics again during COVID, and running for school board, and being very unapologetic and standing up for people's constitutional rights. And, win or lose, I don't care. I'm never going to waver on where I stand and how I believe. And, my delivery and approach may not be, a true traditional politician, but I don't really care, take it or leave it. And so that's kind of what led me here is, just running for Congress, and then, switching over to House District 65, and then meeting you a couple weeks ago on Facebook messaging, And that's how I'm here. That's how I got here.
So
So
what really inspired you to get involved in politics? Because I will tell you, for years when growing up, I'm like, I am not touching this with a 39.5 foot pole. Like, I think politicians are all corrupt. This country's burning down to the ground.
Mhm.
Like, what inspired you to answer the call to actually start being a civil servant?
When I got out of the military, my neighbor was like, "Hey, run for school board. Nobody's going to run against you, so you're going to win." And nobody's really involved in, school board politics. And it was boring. I mean, there wasn't a lot going on then. And then, I got out of it and, just kind of, watched a little bit of what was going on TV, but kind of just fizzled out of it really until COVID. And, after the whole, and I've now keep in mind, I've always loved politics, always talked about politics, always been, into it. And then in 2015, when Trump came down the elevator or escalator, I should say, I was like, yep, this guy's going to win it. He's going to win it. And he's my guy. And he, imploded the Republican Party. And I love, his unapologetic, like, screw you. You're either on board or you're not on board. And, we're not going to play this, being politically correct all the time. And, he was a businessman. And, I really liked that. I really admired him. And it really goes back to the days he was questioning Obama's birth certificate. I'm like, oh, I love this man. He's, finally somebody's questioning whether or not Obama's a citizen or not. I still think it's a fake birth certificate. But I mean, I really got into it. And but really, like, diving in and really being involved and actually wanting to run to be a public servant really came during COVID. And when I saw what our school district here in Windsor was doing to our children, and masking, and talking about forced vaccinations, and people just in uproar about constitutional rights being violated. And I said, no, I'm going to run for school board. And I lost by a very small margin, but there was a lot of victories that came after that. Our bond election failed because of it. Our superintendent ended up resigning days after the election. We had a massive change of leadership on the school board, and it was something that was needed. And I was very proud to be a part of that change. And so then, I stayed active. I stayed active in the Weld County Republican Party, even though it's a disaster. And, when the opportunity arose to run for chair for the Republican Party, I did. Obviously lost by a couple, I don't know, 10 votes or something, but I was able to expose the establishment for who they are in Weld County. And then obviously running for Congress, I just got sick and tired of seeing Buck sell us out. And, I decided, screw it, I'm going to jump in. And what's interesting is that every candidate that jumped in after Buck, and I'm not including Bobert into this, they did it because they just want a job. They don't want to actually serve the people. If they truly didn't like what Buck was doing, as they say they didn't, then why the hell didn't you jump in earlier, when he was still holding that office, when he still was running for reelection? No, you didn't. You waited until he jumped out and said, I'm not running again. And then all of a sudden, oh, we're all flooding in there and we're going to complain about what Buck did. No, you're in it for yourself. And so, and obviously after Boebert jumped in, then, my plans changed and I was fine with that.
And that's something I've actually seen in CD4 too, because like I take CD4 personally because I used to be in
Yeah.
CD4. It's literally like 50 feet across the road from me is where like basically the cutoff is. Now I'm in CD8, right? And when I've, to be fair, I have tried to talk to every single candidate running in CD4 because I want, as an intel guy, I want to know the facts. I want to talk to these
Yeah.
people. And, I'm not going to name names specifically, right? But like I asked them the hard questions. And when it comes down to it, it's like, well, I'm a man of compromise and we need a good image in this state and we need a good image in this district because we don't want anyone else who's going to be flamboyant and being a gun-toting cowgirl. And I sat there and went, no, that's exactly the type of person that I want.
Yeah.
I don't want somebody who's going to compromise and constantly give in to the Democrats. And I challenged a lot of those candidates. I sat there and went, so you're saying you're a man of compromise and you're a farmer, rancher, whatever, you and everyone else out here. Sorry. I mean, like you're not unique. we all are out here. Right.
Yeah.
And they sit there and just go, well, I've been able to work with the Democrats in the past, and I'm the one who's been able to do this and this and this. I sat there and went, right. And that's why we have less and less freedoms and
Yep.
things here in Weld County now, is because you did those things,
Yep.
and it just drives me nuts that there's not brave enough people to sit there and say, no, absolutely not. We're not doing this. And then be very vocal about it. I see that with Lauren. I mean, that lady will throw a crowbar at your face if you give her one. You know what I mean? That's what I love about it.
Yeah. Well,
Like, so in your opinion, Trent, like, let's talk about those establishment politics. And to be fair, I have stayed out of the game. Just leave me alone. I'm on my 12 acres. Don't freaking talk to me. You know what I mean? That's why I've been for years out here. But I have started to see what the establishment is like in Weld County out here, and just in northern Colorado in general. And I sit there and just go, these people hog tie and shoot themselves in the foot willingly. And I don't understand it. Like, you're giving the people that live under the Gold Dome in Denver every single win in every single election. You're giving up your water rights. We gave up our energy independence. And it was so funny because one of the first things I ever got involved in politics was 2017. I went to the Adams County Board of Commissioners meeting when they were doing the drilling moratorium and banning oil and gas. And I was an engineer in oil and gas at the time, and upstream. And I was actually rotating down to Texas because my company was losing a lot of work out here because of all these drilling moratoriums with extraction and everything else. And they wouldn't let anyone speak who was pro oil and gas. So what I did is I said, I'm for the drilling moratorium. I want you to ban it as an oil and gas engineer. So they let me speak, not knowing what I was going to do. And I get up there, I sat there and went, I've spent millions of dollars in my company renting hotels and taking my guys out to eat and paying all the taxes and the revenue. And, we've lost a lot of work and had to go down to Texas since these drilling moratoriums went into effect. And I actually want you to pass a drilling ban. And all the oil and gas workers who knew me stand up and go, oh, what the hell are you doing, Dorito? And I sat there and went, because I want you to completely collapse your tax revenue stream, and I want you to maximize housing prices. I want you to bring in all these Denver people, and I want you literally to make things so economically unviable in your own county that I want everyone to fire you in the next election cycle. And that's why I'm pro drilling ban. And ironically, I ended up talking to one of those Adams County commissioners 2 weeks ago who I had talked shit against in 2017 in public forum. And he sat there and went, Adam, you were right. You were right. And I hate to admit that, but he's like, ever since we did these drilling moratoriums and all these new permitting processes, that Adams County is bankrupt. They have lost so much revenue because they lost all the oil and gas tax revenue that now we have to raise property taxes, and we have to actually build more housing complexes and raise housing prices and taxes to gain more revenue because we've lost it. We don't even have enough money to P&A, plug and abandon the old oil and gas sites because these Democrats and these establishment Republicans catered to Denver. And now, instead of the oil and gas revenue mostly being kept in the counties where it's produced, they are now being forced to distribute it to all of the counties in Colorado, to the fisheries and the LGBTQ pride establishments or whatever it is, because we want equal distribution of wealth. We need to take it away from these billionaires and millionaires because it's not fair. And I sat there and went, yeah, how'd that work out for you? Didn't work out too well for you, is it? And now you have high crime rates, high housing costs, and all this other stuff. And it's just, it blows my mind that people don't understand the basics of economics. So, Trent, talk to me about this establishment. How has it devolved into what it's become today? Like, who are the players, and why is it as bad as it is now? Why is the GOP in Colorado burning itself at the stake like the Protestants and the Catholics in the English Civil War back in the 1600s? Like, how did we get to where we are right now?
Yeah, I feel like where we got to where we are now is Trump. I mean, Trump really imploded the Republican Party and exposed the corruption that was going on within the Republican Party. And that has since trickled down all the way down to the people, because he really gave us a voice and gave us the permission that we've been wanting in terms of the support to say, look, Trump's got my back. The establishment doesn't have my back. These people don't have my back. Look at what they're doing with your tax dollars. Look at what they're doing to try to, remain in power. They're trying to destroy you. Look, it's not the Democrats' fault here. It's the Republican establishment at fault.
100% agree.
We tear our. Look, the Democrats are lucky. They sit back and they're like, we're going to let them tear themselves apart because we don't have to do anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so so I look at I'm versed in what goes on here in Weld County, and I look at our four Rhino County commissioners, and I look at, Scott James, Freeman, Ross, and Perry Buck, and the only really true good conservative county commissioner we have in Weld County is Lori Sain. She is the only true America First patriot that we have, and I'm sit on the Weld County Council. I was appointed to the council about a year ago, a little over a year ago, and her and I are the only true, America First patriots in Weld County that serve the people. And you look at our clerk and recorder, Carly Coppice. She doesn't even want to talk about election integrity. She gets offended if you talk about election integrity because somehow it's insult on her, which it's not. I mean, you look at our sheriff who, demanded a $95,000 pay raise last year and got it. And it's like these people don't have your back. They don't. I fought against the four Rhino commissioners late last year who wanted to hold on to $78.5 million of hard-earned taxpayer money. And so when a Republican says they're for limited government or fiscal responsibility, that's a bunch of garbage. If the Republican establishment has the opportunity to take your tax dollars, they're going to take it. Bottom line, they're going to take it. They don't want you to live in a limited government. They want to control you just as much as the left wants to control you. And so, and Trump's given us a voice and has told us, hey, they don't like you. They want to hurt you. Go after them. And that's what you're seeing today is you're seeing, you know, good people finally standing up and saying, no, enough's enough. And so what does that do? That pits the Republicans against each other. Case in point yesterday, I was at this meeting. It's called the Pachyderms. They meet in Windsor once a week at Coffee House 29. And it's a bunch of old Republican, rhino establishment people who all they care about is what happened 40 years ago under Reagan. They hate Trump, but yet they hate Biden and hate what Biden's doing, but they hate Trump. They'll say, "Oh, well, I'll still vote for Trump," but man, we hate him. We don't like him. We don't like what he's doing to the Republican Party. And it was so funny because my opponent was there. I've been attacking her for being a rhino and being handpicked by these liberal Republicans. And, this old guy, raises his hand and he says, hey, we need to get to a point where it's not about Rhino, it's not about America First, it's not about MAGA, it's about Republicans, and we need to stop calling each other rhinos, and we need to learn to get along, and getting along to them means you got to get rid of your America First values. You got to go back to the way they want you to go. And it was so funny
Don't
because
kiss the ring, Trent.
yeah,
That's what I
yeah,
hear all the time is don't kiss the
yeah,
ring. I sat there and went, if it's Donald Trump's ring, I'm going to kiss it because
exactly,
that's the problem.
exactly,
That's the
exactly.
problem.
And what was so funny and it was priceless was the same guy was like, we can't call each other rhinos anymore because he thinks the real rhinos are the America First people, right? Yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah, it
And
makes
he
no
said,
sense at all.
yeah, and he said, well, but Dave Williams is a rhino. It's okay to call him a
Oh,
rhino, but
get out of
it's not
here.
okay to call anybody else a rhino. And I just started laughing like, wait a minute. You just said to not call anybody rhinos, but then you're like, okay, but it's okay to call Dave Williams a rhino. And look, anytime a Republican says, oh, we need to get along and we shouldn't be attacking other Republicans, they are the ones attacking Republicans. Okay. I've
That's exactly what I've
experienced it.
seen, Trent. Like it blows my mind is that You're exactly correct. I have gone to so many meetings secretly. I sit in the back rooms. I do my own research. I do my own intel gathering on these people, and it's just a bunch of old retired people who want the status quo. And that's the worst part, is that they are the ones controlling the majority of the party, I would say, right now. And this is why I think it's so important to do a podcast like this, is because there are so many people in the silent majority that we can talk to and speak to and have a one-on-one conversation. Like, I'm getting to know you right now, and there is nothing I dislike about you. Not a single thing. And I mean that
Well,
sincerely. I'm not
yeah,
even saying that. Like, I can't even vote for you. You're not even my district, so it
yeah.
doesn't matter. Like,
Well, look, when I look at the Colorado Young Republican group, all I see with them is a bunch of miniature rhinos ready to grow up into an adult rhino. And these are people who are working hand in hand with Barb Kirkmeyer and her crew and Holtorf and Mike Lynch and all these other rhinos at the state capitol.
Barb Kirkmeyer is a huge problem in the state of Colorado.
Oh,
I have done my background research on her. She's been doing
she's
this
the
since
worst Republican in the state of Colorado. She's the worst.
she's been doing this since the 80s. She was involved in an affair with her husband. Her only objective right now is to work hand in hand with the Democrats to such an extent that the Democrats will allow her to be a so-called elected Republican governor when Polis leaves. That terrifies me,
Mm-hmm.
because you're running and you're saying you're a Republican, but the problem is, and I've done my research on Barb, so no offense, but um she has acquiesced so much to the left over her, whatever, 20, 30 plus year political career, that she is part of the reason that the Republicans, or the conservative movement in the state of Colorado, has lost so many of its individual rights and freedoms to farmers, oil and gas workers, and the people that really run this state. I know we don't have the population density of Denver and Boulder, but I will tell you, as an oil and gas guy, every single company that I have worked for in the state of Colorado has gone out of business or sold off. And that's only in the last 12 years. And she is a huge part of that problem. And one thing, and I will hand it to the libertarians on this, I will hand it to them so much, because I am so glad that she lost the race in CD8.
I am
Because
too.
you know what? Look, I actually know you, dear Cavero. I actually met with her office last week because I'm working with her on bipartisan legislation for military reform on the federal side. She's not my favorite. I think she's a pretty weak Democrat in terms of her policies and everything else. But God forbid we had a hard establishment Republican take CD8, because you want to know what? In 2026, we can find another candidate that can take that position. But the libertarians even knew that Barb Kirkmeyer was a bad idea. And that's why she lost by like 953 votes or whatever it was because of the independents. And that's the people that you and I need to speak to right now, Trent, is the disaffected independent voters. And there's a lot of them in the state of Colorado. They are the ones that are going to swing the election. We know that the establishment Republicans are going to vote for the establishment no matter what. We know that the America First candidate people are going to vote for those America First candidates no matter what. What we really need to do right now is to speak to all the disaffected voters who see all these party politics and let them get to know you as a candidate and all these other candidates that are running, to ensure that, because they're the ones that are going to determine who is going to be running in these districts and in these federal elections. And I think that's why it's so important to have these conversations, because the cesspool that I have seen develop in the last year with these establishment Republicans is that I'd rather vote for a Democrat. And I mean that full heartedly. I would rather vote for a Democrat who I can have a conversation with, who can give me their party platform and their principles, than vote somebody else who just wants to take my tax dollars and just put themselves in position for their own self-righteousness.
I totally agree with you 100%. I mean, look, I'm really tired of Republicans saying, oh, I'd rather have just a Republican in there than a Democrat. And to be honest with you, I'm the same way. I would rather have, you know what? Look, the Republican that acts like a Democrat, I'd rather have the Democrat in their spot.
Because
With
at
Barb
least you know where they
Kirkmeyer,
stand. You at
yeah,
least,
I
they're
mean,
not
you know
going to
where
lie
they
to your
stand.
face. You know where they stand.
Well, look, Gabe Evans hates Trump. He doesn't like Trump. He's anti-Trump. Okay. He is pro big government. He is pro establishment. He's in it for himself. He just wants the money. He wants the name recognition. Look, he's not going to support Trump. Okay. He's not. I would rather have Carveo in there than have Gabe Evans in there, because I know she's not going to support him, but I know where she stands on everything. Okay.
Oh, and
And
here's the wild thing about Gabe too is I reached out to him and offered him to come on this podcast, and he completely ghosted me. And I think he started doing research on who I was because, like you and I, we've been in Mar-a-Lago. We're in that circle. We know these people, and I think he became afraid of me. But like on a personal level, I like Gabe because Gabe was one of my helicopter pilots in the Army National Guard. We had that relationship, so to speak. He's one of my my brothers, so to speak, in uniform. But politics and money changes people, and one thing that unsettled me about it was he is funded by Americans for Prosperity. And I see Jeff Crank as another establishment, Doug Lamborn in CD5. And I will tell you, after all the sexual assault and corruption cases at Fort Carson and the Air Force Academy over the last 20 years, I can't morally support people who are going to continue to harm my brothers and sisters in uniform in those specific areas. And like I said, I gave all of these candidates the option to come on this podcast and talk about it, and they just disappear off the face of the earth because they know I'm going to call you on your bullshit. Like Trent, if you're feeding me bullshit right now, I would 100% call you on it.
Mhm.
And it is what it is, but I don't feel the need to because right now you and I are having an honest conversation about the issues of the people that have destroyed the state. And why would I want to continue to let the ship go into the block the Suez Canal, so to speak? You know what I
Well,
mean?
look, yeah. Look, I'm just going to put it like this with Gabe Evans, Armagost, Lynch. I can't stand them. Okay. I appreciate their service to this country. But other than that, look, when they got elected and 2 years ago went into office in 23 January 23, their first act as a representative was voting for the Democrat Speaker of the House in Colorado. They don't need your vote.
That's a
There's
problem.
19 Republicans in the state house, the smallest minority in the history. And 11 of you guys are going to freaking vote for the Democrat Speaker of the House, all out of the name of tradition. When you're willing to do that, then you have absolutely no morals and values in my book. None.
Why do you think people like in the Republican Party do that? Because like you said, they didn't need to vote for them because they were going to get elected anyway, right? Because obviously the Democrats outnumber the Republicans in the state of Colorado. From a moral standpoint, and even like on the history of the Republican Party in the state of Colorado, why do you think that these Republicans or people who claim to be Republicans continue to vote against the interests of the American people here in the state of Colorado?
I think they do it for power, money, and fame. I mean, I think they're self-serving. They're in it for themselves. They're really not in it for the people. Look, I've told all three of them, if you would just apologize for what you did, then we can start out fresh and have a discussion. But you voted for somebody that is pro-abortion on demand, who hates guns, who hates conservatives, who hates everything that you and I stand for, and you voted to put her in power. She didn't need your vote. So you know what? Stand for the people and say, hey, we're not going to support you. And you know what? They they'll say, oh, we did it out of tradition, or we did it because they promised us things. Not one promise that stupid Democrat gave them was fulfilled. Not one. So why the hell do it? Why? And that, it's like, that just goes back to this traditional Republican mentality of, well, we got to play nice, we got to be above bar, we got to do this, political correctness, because we've got to be the statesman. Those days are over with. We are losing. We are losing every single day, every single year, every single election cycle because we're doing the same thing over and over and over. That's the definition of insanity, okay? It's like we're not winning. Close the damn primaries. Quit fighting with Dave Williams. Ken Buck destroyed the Republican Party. Christy Burton Brown destroyed the Republican Party. The people that came before them destroyed the Republican Party. Enough's enough. We need a new direction. We need change. We haven't won a statewide election since 2016, with Cory Gardner, I think it was. And it was because our primaries were closed.
And
Okay.
and this is another thing I want to bring up too. I was at a recent Republican meeting, one of these like conservative meetups or whatever, and the attack on Lauren Boebert was she has never actually passed a piece of legislation since she's been in Congress, and factually that is correct. But then I sit there and go, why? Well, the reason is because she absolutely refuses to compromise on conservative America First values.
Yes.
So every time a bill got proposed that she would propose or whatever, and then it got watered down with so many Democratic initiatives in it, she sit there and go, "No, I'm pulling my vote and I'm voting no against it, and I'm not going to support it." Because she has the courage to command, as I like to say. She had the courage to say,
Yes.
I voted, I initially presented this bill or this initiative or these are the initiatives. But if it goes against the America First conservative values, I'm going to make sure that it doesn't pass. And correct. Every piece of legislation she's proposed that was America First has failed because these establishment Republicans make sure that it loses because we don't have enough of them in the majority to actually win these bills. So I would much rather have somebody elected in office who loses every single initiative that they propose because they're doing the right thing and they're not acquiescing to the Democratic Party.
Yeah, look, I've stood on the platform of I don't care if I lose. Obviously, I want to win, but I will never back down on where I stand. And I am not a bought and paid for person. Just like, look, Lauren Boebert isn't a rich person. Okay. She doesn't have millions of dollars flowing out of her
I mean, she doesn't stock trade like Nancy Pelosi and
no,
Dan
no.
Crenshaw. Yeah,
Oh
exactly.
yeah. Eye Patch McCain, I like that is his, is what they call him. I like that because it's true. But I mean, look, she could easily be a multimillionaire by now by selling
Easily,
us out. But
easily.
she didn't. Okay. She stands on principles. She stands on her beliefs. And that's what I love about her. I don't care if she carpet bagged to this district. Yeah, sure. When I was running for Congress and she switched over, yeah, I took some hits at her. But you know what? I realized like why. It's like okay, she stands for what I stand for. We would vote the exact same way, and so
But at least you had the common sense to realize, like, hey,
yeah.
she's got the Trump endorsement. She's the best fit because she's going to push the America First values. And I'm going to take a step back and go where I can make a difference versus making it about yourself. And I actually admire that about you, Trent.
Well, and look, Lauren will say, look, when I first got to Congress, who was in power? Nancy Pelosi was. Of course, Nancy Pelosi hates every Republican, hates every Trumper, hates every person that doesn't believe the same way she believes. And so, yeah, Lauren stood there and she fought back. She stood up. She stood her ground. Whether she won or lost, she stood there on principle. And I would rather have a conservative who goes down in flames fighting the battle than somebody who steps aside and says, "Okay, well, let's get along and let's compromise, even though it's going to hurt people. Let's compromise." And I've stood on solid ground, and I've told people because they've said, "Oh, you're going to go down there and you're going to be bombastic and you're not going to get along." And I said, "No, no, no. I'm going to be an effective leader. I will negotiate all day long on anything that helps people. But if it hurts somebody, screw you. I'm not going to vote for it, and I'm not going to stand up for it." Look, everybody, Mike Lynch touts his whole fentanyl bill, and that was supposed to rid us of fentanyl, but it got so watered down by the
It
Democrats
did.
that ultimately, what did it do? It still hurts us, okay? It doesn't stop what's going on. I mean, it's like, but Republican after Republican after Republican says, "Oh, but we still probably need a vote on it just so we can show that we're getting along." Enough with getting along, guys. Enough.
And that's
Enough.
and that's actually what I admire about John Fabatori, who's running in six. Who, unfortunately,
Yeah.
is that he is a DHS employee and he's a border patrol guy, and he's sitting there like telling them what's really going on, and he just gets constantly attacked for calling the kettle black and the reality of the political situation we're living in, right? And it blows my mind that when it comes down to brave people who want to run for office for the right reasons, and they get shot down because it's gonna upset the established order. It's gonna make everything the way it's supposed to be. We just want to keep things going the way they are. So
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of it too is that good people who I think would be phenomenal, representatives, and I don't like using the word politician, representatives, servants to the people. They're I think there's people that are afraid of the weaponization of the party, the weaponization of the justice system, you know, any sort of weaponization that can hurt them. It's like, they're digging crap up in my past from 15 years ago, saying, "Oh, okay, look at what happened 15 years ago." It's like, you know what? Suck an egg, because nothing I've done or said is going to affect who I am, is going to change where I stand. And I will always go down fighting for the people. And there's not a lot of people that are like me, that are like you, that are like Trump, that are like Lauren Boebert. And what scares people is, I don't need their money. I don't care to have that money. Lauren is not a bought and paid for person. What scares people, what really scares people about, America First, true conservative patriots who are true servants, is that we can't be bought and paid for by some radical left union, or some conservative union that is disguised as, that the back of it is liberal Republicans that are behind a lot of this stuff. And so, I fortunately have the mentality of, look, there's nothing you can say that's going to hurt me. I have people tell me all the day, like, "Oh, you're fat." Yeah, I am. You know why? Because I love food. Okay, I love eating steak.
Really, that's your attack? That's the
Yeah, I'm
attack
like,
against
okay,
you?
sure.
Like, I don't
It's
care.
like, I don't care. It's like, attack me all day long. I
It's
don't care. Nothing you say hurts my feelings.
It's funny, Trent, because to be fair, I have a contentious history with the DoD as well, right? Like shit happened to me 15 years ago at the Air Force Academy, like with sexual
Yeah,
assault and all this other stuff, and I get attacked all the time. And I'm like, I'm not even running for office, right?
yeah,
Like people come after me, and I'm like, who the fuck are these people? Like, I don't even know who the hell they are, and like. They're like, oh, you're supporting the Dave Williams cabal. And I'm like, the second somebody says the word cabal, I'm just like, you're an ISIS terrorist. I need to put a drone strike on. Like, it's
yeah,
just so let's actually talk about your district now. We've talked about the history of your military service, why you become an America First candidate, your the entire history of the Colorado GOP. But talk to me about the issues in Colorado District 65 and why you're the best candidate to be running in that district and should be elected.
yeah. I mean, look, House District 65 is unique because it's a mix of agriculture and urban. And the biggest issue that is going to affect House District 65 sooner than later is water. I mean, water is the most precious resource on this planet. And in House District 65, you have a massive growth and influx of new development coming in day after day after day, thousands of houses being built every single day. And, uh, towns and cities across the state coming up here and buying that water is something that is, going to really affect House District 65. And so, you need somebody in the state house that understands water, understands personal property, understands water rights, understands where water comes from and how it's allocated and distributed. And we send billions and billions and billions of acre feet out of Colorado that belong here. And so, we do need to be able to build storage facilities for water. Yeah, I know they've got Glade Reservoir being constructed now, which is supposed to be done in 28, which is supposed to help offset. But look at how many years and years and years and years went into environmental study after environmental study after environmental study. People, this planet is not going anywhere. Okay, we're not. There is no global warming going on other than the four seasons that we experience here in Colorado. And so we need to be able to have somebody that understands that and understands agriculture. And so we've got issues with, homeless population here. We've got drugs coming in here. We've got crime that's on the influx. And, we need somebody that can really look at what's going on objectively and fight and represent what needs to be done. I mean, my opponent has been in public education for 25 years, and that's all she knows. All she knows how to do is serve the unions. I'm not a union person. I've never been a union person. And so, you just look, I feel like in order to solve the problems that we solve is you really need business minded oriented people that understand the structure of business, understand how the economy works, how how regulations affect the farming industry and affect the oil and gas. I've led the charge to reduce the mill levy rate in Weld County. It was the only mill levy that was decreased out of 600 taxing districts in Weld County. The only one to receive a decrease was the Weld County mill levy rate, and that was due to my efforts to reduce that. And so, my opponent is not very well diverse or experienced in a lot of those areas. And I may not be the best expert in everything, but the one thing that I am that my opponent is not is, I'm the America First conservative in this race. And I only care about what happens here in Colorado and what happens in this country. I could care less what goes on outside of the borders of this country. And you know, we've got to have people who are willing to tackle the tough issues. And quite frankly, it's my opponent isn't anywhere close. Her whole campaign has been about negotiating and compromising. I'm done compromising. I'm done negotiating. If we can't come to the table and make something, benefit the people, then I'm not going to support it and stand up for it. And so House District 65 has been underrepresented since Mike Lynch has entered the seat. And we're in the mess that we're in partly because of Mike Lynch and his leadership down at the state capitol. And I'm not looking for a leadership position. I just want to go serve the people, make their lives better, and get out and let somebody else take over. Hopefully, somebody that has the same mindset as myself. And that's what House District 65 needs. And the water issue is going to be huge in this district. And I understand that. I understand agriculture, and my opponent doesn't.
Yeah, I really admire that because as a guy who's been overseas as well, we can't fix the world. You can dump billions of dollars into any country, and you know what it's going to do? Nothing. It's not going to fix it because you can't change the culture of how these people choose to live. And ironically, I'm also a water guy. So, not by choice, but I'm in the union because I work at a refinery. I'm part of the Steelworkers Union. So, I was actually at the AFL CIO union meeting a couple weeks ago, and just watching how many democratic unions do not understand the basics of infrastructure, agriculture, water supply, electricity generation, oil and gas is absolutely mind-blowing. They all want to shut this down. They want to do XYZ, and they don't understand the implications that's going to cost millions of dollars in tax revenue against the Colorado taxpayer, that they're going to affect hundreds of thousands of jobs by doing that. And I don't think people understand Colorado is a first source water state, which means most of our water comes from, if not all of it, comes from the mountains, right? They just
Yep.
finished an $18 million water pipeline from Pueblo Reservoir to Colorado Springs because they're running out of water.
Hmm.
The channels that they built to divert the meltwater from the mountains that were built in the 50s because we didn't have regulations back then. We could do whatever the hell we want and blow holes in the mountains. You can't do that anymore. And Grant Junction's farming economy and agriculture out there needs water too, and they're not willing to pump the water backwards, so to speak, to help supply Denver, Colorado Springs, and northern Colorado. And it blows my mind that people don't understand the essence of water treatment, water purification, making sure our agriculture industry is very solid, because I don't think people understand this. Colorado is a point of national security when it comes to food
Hmm.
and water supply. If Colorado can't generate the food and the water that we need in order to produce all this food, it's going to cause food security
Hmm.
issues for the
Yep.
entire nation, not just Colorado, right? And we have irresponsible developers that are coming in and building communities where water doesn't exist. And now they're just going to cost the taxpayer even more money trying to build more pipelines or distribution areas. Colorado Springs has an issue with this too, where there's a law in the statutes that state that they can't build above a certain amount of levels because everyone has to have a view of the mountains. So their distribution for water can't even go out east enough to even give people the water and the water treatment that they need. And I think I really admire that you understand that fundamental issue, that the greatest way to cause civil unrest in a country is take away their food, take away their electricity, take away their water, and then watch things devolve into chaos.
Yeah.
And water is
Yeah.
massively important to that issue. And it's
Yeah.
something that people don't understand or talk about enough.
No, they don't. And look, Thornton came up here over the last few years and has bought a tremendous amount of water. And they just finished their pipeline from here down to Thornton, and left a lot of these farms dry. And it's because that this the politicians here, the government, just, yeah, go do it, who cares. And now we're faced with an issue of, oh, now where are we going to get our water at, because it's now all going down to Thornton. And
It's a
now we have
finite
this.
resource. It's
Yeah,
a
and now we
finite
have these.
resource.
Yeah, now we have all this land around this area that is dry. It's not farmable, it's not usable, because it needs water.
And you're affecting the wildlife, right?
Yeah.
This is like people always claim like, oh, like we need hippies to be conservationists. Screw that. I'm a conservationist. I'm a farmer. I understand my
Mhm.
water rights and the animals that I have as well. And part of being a steward to the land is being a good farmer, being
Yeah.
a good steward to the land. And you understand that. And it's just, why would I want to elect somebody who only is experiences in a Democratic union controlled board of education perspective that has absolutely no idea how anything works outside of a number two pencil?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's like, that's why, we just I understand what it takes when it comes to water and how important it is in this in the and not only in the state, in this district, but across the country. And this we are the hub for massive distribution of water throughout the United States, at least on the western side of the United States. And so, what happens here affects Kansas and Nebraska, all the way to Missouri and Iowa. And we have to make sure that I obviously want to make sure we're taking care of what goes on here in the state of Colorado, and distribute water out equally amongst the other states that deserve it. But it needs to stay here as much as it can stay here, because we are the hub. And if this state dries up, everything else around it's going to dry up. And I'm really tired of the days of, well, we got to make sure that Nebraska's okay and Kansas is okay. Yeah, we can. We're sending billions and billions of acre feet down the streams that belong here in Colorado. But conservate. I should say, the left, and has done a good job of preventing us the ability to keep our natural resources here in the state that belong here in the state. And
Yeah, because
my
it's environmental racism, Trent. Remember that. It's
yeah.
environmental racism.
Oh, I know. It's, yeah, it is, and I'm really fed up with it. I mean, look at what I mean. Glade Reservoir that they just started. I mean, this was been a concept for decades, and decades, but it's just been one environmental study after another, after another, after another, after another. And you know what? Our politicians have failed us day after day after day. Even Windsor's a great example. Windsor does the town government has told developers, you don't need to bring water. We'll figure it out later. Just give us a cash in lieu for, we'll come up with a price per share of water, and you can just develop all day long. I mean, we've got a development going on right now that's going to bring 10,000 people, yeah, 10,000 people into this town within the next 5 to 6 years.
Great
And
way to clog up
they didn't bring,
I-25.
yeah, they didn't bring one water share to help offset that development. So guess what? The town of Windsor is going to have to go out and buy water at a rate, 5 years down the road, that's twice as expensive as it would be today if the developer would just take it. And it's like, guys, you have to. I'm all for economic growth. I'm all for development if it's done right. But they have to bring all of the resources to the table, or don't do it. Like, you can't approve developments in these communities if you're not going to bring water. And we're seeing that in Severance right now, where Northweld Waters pretty much put a moratorium on growth on their water system because that the developers can't bring the water to offset the growth that they're bringing into the communities.
Well, and I think you're seeing this operate in real time down in Parker, right? So when I
Mhm.
first left the Air Force Academy and they were finishing up that reservoir they built out there, and they can't even fill it because they've overdeveloped Parker so much, it's draining the land of
Mhm.
everything. There is
Yeah.
no way to support this massive influx of California transients and Texas transients into Colorado. I mean, I used to go down to Parker all the time, go to the tailgate, and it used to be our nice little biker bar, hole in the wall place. And now you're going to sit in 2 hours of traffic on 83 just to even get down to Main Street, and it's just it's unsustainable. We're not doing this the right way. So
No.
so Trent, let's say you get elected Colorado District 65. What are your first initiatives as the new elected representative in the House District 65?
I would say my first initiative is going to be obviously not voting for the Democrat Speaker of the House and standing firm against that. But really, look, there are massive issues facing our country, or our state, really, and our country, with illegal immigration. Ranking number two when it comes to fentanyl deaths in this country, the water issue, agriculture, and I want to be an effective fighter on all of those issues. And but the one thing I want to make sure that I stand true on, which is, if I'm not going to support something that's going to hurt somebody, even if it hurts one person. We have homeless vets on the street. We have illegals in nice hotels that we're paying thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for. And, I will continue to stand for the rights of these citizens, because the citizens of this state come before any other political interest group, before money, before the non-citizens in this country. And really, if there's a lot of things I would love to see change, I'd love to be a part of. But, I would say you know, my number one thing that I'm going to do when I get down there is be a fighter and fight against this egregious legislation that's going on, and stand for the good people of the state, because we don't have a lot of that going on. I think we have maybe three other representatives right now, maybe four, that actually do that. And they get criticized all day long for that. And I've talked to all of them and I've said, look, I'm going to be standing right beside you, and we're going to fight together. And guess what? The next election cycle, I hope we have two more people. And so I really want to be a part of a movement to bring more people like myself and the other three or four people down there that are really effective fighters, and fight. Look, if you don't have an A rating on your Liberty scorecard, you're not doing your job. You're not. And there's too many failing grade Liberty scores out there on these stinking Republicans that just compromise day after day after day. And, I'm sick of it. Look, I'm getting criticized right now because, I haven't filed my 23 taxes, and I'm not going to. And I haven't paid my 22 tax bill, and I'm not going to. I am not going to. Why? Because this freaking state gives millions of dollars to illegal aliens. I can just write them a damn check if they want my money, but I'm taking a stand. And a lot of people look at that and they're like, oh, wow, you're willing to face any consequence. Damn right I am.
Why you're
Face the
not comply,
system.
comply, comrade? Give us your money so I can waste it
Yeah,
for
I'm
you.
like, I'm sorry, but if you're a Republican criticizing me for not paying taxes because I'm sick and tired of the way of state of Colorado uses my tax dollars to hurt me, I'm not going to give them that bullet to shoot me with. And I'm
I
proud to
like it.
stand up and say, yeah, I'm not going to do it. Spend my money wisely. Then I'll pay my damn bill. But until then, stop foolishly spending my money on disastrous stuff that not only hurts me, but hurts America, conservatives, Americans in this country, in this state, and in this district. And I'm going to take that same mentality and that same tenacity to this job. And I hope I'm elected. But you know what? If I'm not elected, okay. Well, then you know what? The people get what they get. You get what you pay for. And I hope that there's enough people that have said, you know what? Enough's enough. We don't want the old guard. We don't want, the traditional way of doing things. The Reagan days are gone and over with. They're dead. It's time to move on. Trump is the Republican Party. Like it or not, he is. And he is the America First, guy. And he loves this country. And you either get on board or you stay off the train, but don't bitch, don't whine, and find a different country to move to, because that is the movement in this country. And that half the country is moving that direction. I think it'll be a lot more. I mean, I talk to Democrats and unaffiliateds and independents who have told me, look, I hate what's going on. I may not stand for everything you stand for or what Trump stands for, but what's going on right now is hurting our country and hurting people. And, I'm hoping that enough people will stand up and say, you know what, enough's enough. We're not going to continue down this path, and we're going to want more America First conservative fighters.
No, I agree. I mean, it's like the frog in the slowly boiling water concept, right? I don't think Coloradans realize how bad it's going to get. I mean, hell, we got Russian warships off the coast of Florida right now. Everyone's like, "Oh, this is fine."
Yeah.
This hasn't happened since
Yeah.
the '60s, right? It blows my mind. And
Yeah.
I actually want to thank you for this conversation. Like I said, you and I have no idea who each other are until we started talking today, and I'm really glad that we had to have this open conversation about who you really are, what you really stand for, the issues facing the state of Colorado, and that you're not this guy that all these crazy people make you out to be. And I admire that conversation. That's why I think these conversations are so important to have. And
Yeah.
I'm hoping that my listeners and everywhere else where this gets posted can really connect with Trent Leisy, and that you get into Colorado District 65. Because if I lived up
Yeah.
there, you got my vote, Trent, 100%. Like,
Well,
you're
I
the guy that I
appreciate it.
want in office.
And look, I've had many conversations with people about this movement, and I've come to the conclusion, and I tell people, look, a vote against Bober is a vote against Trump. Gabe Evans, he's not a Trump guy. I don't care. Um, if somebody's too afraid to come onto your podcast or any other podcast that's America First, it's because they're not America First. They don't want to be challenged on the issues. They're self-serving, and they're only in it for themselves.
Yeah.
And
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 to be
and
fair,
that's what it is.
I've invited people who don't agree with my point of views because I want them to have the opportunity to speak to the people that they want to represent. And the fact that you don't even want to speak to the people that you want to represent says a lot about you, right?
Mhm.
Like
It does.
I'm gonna have an open and honest conversation. We may not agree on everything, and as Americans, we shouldn't agree on everything because then we just belong to North Korea for dear leader,
Yeah.
right? And it's
Yeah.
you and I probably, if we sat down and had a whiskey and a freaking steak, there's probably some things that we don't agree on, Trent. And you want to know what? You're still my neighbor, and collectively we're making America better, and that's all that
Yeah.
matters, right? So
Well,
we're
it would be interesting to find out what we don't agree on. I'd take you up on that offer to find
I'm
out.
sure there's something. It's probably calibers and guns or something. You probably
Yeah,
think, yeah,
probably.
yeah.
It'd be
You probably think a
focused.
357 is better than a 9 mil or
Yeah,
something. I don't freaking know.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I mean, look, I told Lauren one day, I said, there's only one vote that I don't agree with that you did, but everything else that you've done, I've loved. And that's good. That's politics. That's how we should be. But
it's called civil discourse.
yes, yeah. And look, uh, what Trump says it a lot. He'd rather get 80% than nothing. And if he gets 80%, then it's a good deal, and we can move on and move forward. But it's that's the reality that we need to start moving into, and living, is that this is we're in a time where we're in a fight for our country, and the satanic left is taking over. It's about good versus evil. It's not about left versus right. And if you're not on the right side of this issue, if you're not on the good side of this issue, then all you're doing is hurting this country and hurting the people in this country. And and you need to get out, and good people need to come in and take over, because it is a time for a change. whether people like Dave Williams or not, I am glad that he's blown up the Republican Party, because it's now time for a new change.
I would agree.
And I'm ready to take that same thing down to the state house and blow it up and say, hey, it's now time for a change. We may not be able to, I may not be successful on getting a single bill passed or a single bill entered, but you know what? If I'm fighting as a wall and protecting the people in Colorado in my district, I'll take that job all day long.
No, I agree, and that's exactly why I changed the direction of this podcast specifically, where it's, constitutional civility through discourse and debate. Like you said, we're not going to agree on everything, but the Constitution matters. It was written by people way smarter than us, because everyone here is probably has the average IQ of under 3 digits, who's running the state party right now, or these
Yeah,
establishment Republicans. So I just want to thank you for your time. I think this has been an awesome conversation, especially if you make it to the primary. Let's do this again going into the general. Like,
absolutely.
this is going to be
Absolutely.
fun,
Yeah.
And so where can people connect with you, Trent? Where can people talk to you, have these
Yeah,
conversations and
look,
everything else?
yeah, so look, the primary's coming up here in a few days, June 25th. I just encourage all your listeners to get out and vote, whether it's in my election or elections across, whatever district they may lie in. I mean, it's important. We have to get out and we have to vote if we want to change. If people obviously can't do this without donations, so I encourage folks to go to my website, trentleisy.com. You can sign up to get information, read my platform where I stand, donate to my campaign. I do a lot on Twitter, so at real Trent Leisy is the biggest social media handle you can find me at. But I just encourage everybody to get out to vote. Support me if you can in any way you can, because it's time that we have a change at the state house and we get more America First conservatives elected.
Nope, I couldn't agree more. You and I have seen how other countries will literally kill each other for the ability and the freedoms to vote. And if you don't vote in this election, you're giving up what this country stands for and what so many American servicemen and women have died for over 200 years now. So once again, Trent, I want to thank you for your service. I want to thank you for having the courage to command, as I like to say, and stand up and do the right things and face such harsh opposition against an establishment that has been slowly destroying our country. And I hope that everyone in Colorado District 65 gets out there and puts in a vote for Trent Leisy, gets on your webpage, supports you financially, and gets your name out there and starts door knocking, because we need people like you in government. We can't have this establishment run this disaster anymore.
Well, I appreciate it, Adam. It's been an honor to have $37,000 being thrown at attack ads against me, because that means I'm winning, and the rhinos are scared to lose their seat. And, I love this game. I love doing this, and I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it for the people.
No, I appreciate it. And I just followed you on Twitter, so I'm going to make
Thank
sure
you.
this.
I'll follow you back.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, yeah. Well, this will be out in a few days. Hopefully, I get everything compiled and pretty looking. And once again, Trent, I really want to thank you for your time. Thanks for coming on the Tuxes and Tomahawks podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks, Adam.